Hello, Steve White, Steve Arts 89. Well, I just watched Quantum Leap, Season 1, Episode 14, S.O.S. It was an interesting one, because I remember last week when we saw where he was going to leap next, we saw a Navy ship. I thought, well, that, at least production-wise, will be interesting. What made it interesting, though, was that, at first we thought he was in the middle of a war or something, and it's like, oh, God. But it was actually just a drill. He's actually in 1989, May 1989, and historically, it was the sinking of a submarine called the Tampa because they didn't get rescued because the ship ignored the S.O.S. Now, what we find out is that Addison's father is on the ship and he's the second in command. And the captain, Captain Drake, is a bit erratic. He's obsessed with teaching the Chinese a lesson. He's sort of pursuing... or there's a sub that's sort of watching them, and he's sort of just determined to teach them a lesson or take them down. He's just sort of being really aggressive, and Addison's father actually said to follow up the S.O.S, but the captain outranked him, or whatever you call it. So they didn't do it, but he originally took the responsibility for it because the guy was a legend. And he had helped him get him into the Navy and everything, so he sort of covered for him. And he basically ended his career with that, ruined his reputation. And Addison said that he was always closed and not emotional, and she was surprised at how emotional he was on the ship. Now later on, we see that the captain is just preoccupied with pursuing the thing. They don't... He doesn't care about rescuing the ship. He's more preoccupied with taking on the Chinese, and it just goes through all these scenarios. Every time they find a way to justify rescuing the men and ignoring the submarine, the captain just dismisses it and just goes again. And then they hit a mine, but they don't know they've hit a mine because he actually fires a warning shot at the sub, and they're like, that could be an act of war. That they could see that as an act of war, and he's like, no. He's playing games. Then they get hit by a mine. They don't know it's a mine, and he's convinced that the sub was retaliating and shot him. So he's trying to find it, and they do find it. He wants to attack it, but they work out that it's actually a minefield, and there was a storm because Magic is talking to Chinese officials in current times, and they basically had a minefield in waiting, so American subs would be hit and have to rise, and then they'd see that they actually were in their territory and so forth. And there was a storm, and 50 of them had broken free, and they were just all over the place or something. So they had to dodge them. They had to eventually. I think they proved to him that it wasn't them, that it was the mines, but he still wouldn't accept it. And then they had to her dad had to. He got kicked off the command, and he eventually had to break out with Ben's help and basically commit a mutiny because everyone could tell the captain was out of line, unhinged, whatever, but they were all afraid to do something. The only person who could stand up was the second officer. And eventually he broke out. He got onto the bridge, and he basically said, you can't do this. And he eventually realised that he was over the top and he was being irrational, and he sort of pulled back, and they sort of saved him. They didn't have to actually remove him, but because one of the other officers, they refused to remove him, so it was clear that it was going to be a mutiny. And I'm not sure what happened. I'm not sure if it actually ruined his career or not, or if he wasn't charged with mutiny because the captain realised he was out of line and his second officer was correct to stop him from doing what he was doing, because it was going to cause World War III when he destroyed that sub. They saved the day. It was interesting to see the sort of Back to the Future sort of scenario, and they even mentioned Back to the Future in the episode. And Addison got to work out some stuff with her dad because she was talking to the person Ben was leaping in, and said that his wife didn't love him. She knew he'd stay with him, but they'd be miserable, and I think that's what he did, because it was unclear what happened in Addison's life. We'd heard that he wasn't emotional and was cold to her, but I'm guessing he stayed, as opposed to leaving and then just being cold when they were relating to each other. I think he was going to leave and he didn't leave. It was unclear what actually happened insofar as their marriage and what was different after this, or if it was the same or whatever. But she seemed to understand him more, and there was a point where she was saying, "You did a good job. You're not going to be your father," and he actually is sort of. It's like he can almost sort of sense her, and he just says it's going to be okay. He decides not to leave, because I think he was going to leave because he thought they couldn't have a good relationship. So either way, they sorted it out, and then he found out that one of the people on the ship was what was his name? Oh no, I forgot to write down his name. The other jumper, the other leaper. Was it Fernandez? No, it's Martinez. I think Martinez. He was there, and he was working with Ben without Ben knowing, because he was on another part of the ship. I think he was the one of the ops guys, or whatever you call them, and communications or something. And he revealed himself at the end to say, I couldn't have done it without your help, basically, and we still don't know what his intentions are, what he's doing, but he basically said, I'm winning, and leapt, and then he leapt, and he appeared in some lawyer's chambers, court, and he's a lawyer in the next episode, a female lawyer, and so we don't know, this Martinez ongoing story. It's kind of interesting, but I'm more interested in the individual leaps, so I'm not really engaged. I'm glad they haven't dwelled on it too much. It doesn't come up every episode. This is the first time it's come up since, I think, the second episode they sort of dealt with it, that I can remember. So, it was a good episode. It was interesting. I was wondering, they were sort of doing the, Back to the Future thing. Will she disappear if, and it's like, she's already born. And they sort of dispelled a lot of that and said, you have to make some really serious changes to somebody's life to affect the people in their life, and other timelines and stuff like that. So it's not as easy as Back to the Future, where someone's just erased when, you change something. And like I said, it was already after she'd been born. I think she was 2 or something, because when Ben goes to his quarters, he sees the pictures of her and that, and they talk, and it was interesting. We're not quite sure why he shut off and was unemotional with her, and what changed. I'm guessing, I don't know. I don't know if he left and then was not good with her, or if he was with her and not good with her, and they changed that just because he changed emotionally, or he changed the way he saw it, or if he actually stayed and it was a different scenario. I really wasn't quite sure what the original scenario was, and if anything changed. They didn't really talk about it. I didn't really go on to Addison and any changes or anything. They just sort of went straight from her sort of communicating to him somehow, even though she was an android from the past, just talking through, the machine. He seemed to, hear her and, say it's going to be all right. So we assume it was, but they didn't go into it anymore. But so I guess we'll see where the Martinez thing goes and the other leaper and all that. But I'm less interested in that ongoing arc. I mean, you can sort of do that first episode, last episode of the season, and sort of have it go somewhere, but you don't have to have it, running through every episode and stuff like that. And they haven't really done that yet, which is good. But I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. I can't think of anything else talking about this. It was a little bit funny to see him trying to negotiate the chain of command, and the harshness of it, and the just like, it's like, even if someone's totally wrong and everyone knows it, no one will say anything because of the chain of command. And I think because the second of command has to say something and no one else could, so no one else would say anything. So it's kind of interesting to look at how the Navy works in that way, because you would think they'd be able to say something, and they would say something. But he was afraid to, because he felt indebted to him, and no one else would, speak up, because it was his job to do it. So I would like to think that people would be able to actually speak up and say something if there was some sort of problem like that happening in the real world, because they nearly caused World War III. And there was some incident on May 2nd, so they had to sort of maintain what happened, and you know, I don't know if any variation would have led to World War III, but destroying the sub would have. So as long as they stopped that, they probably would have been okay. But I'm still talking. It's like 10 minutes. I should stop. But it was a good episode. I was certainly engaged. There were a few funny moments when after Ben broke him out and he was trying to get to the bridge. Ben was sort of getting in the way of the security guards, and he eventually gets tackled. And just seeing him try and deal with the Navy was kind of not really humorous, but it was kind of interesting, kind of funny. But because he couldn't really convince people, he couldn't really talk, because most of the time he's using his skills just as his just interpersonal skills and conversation and all that. And in this case, sometimes he just couldn't speak, and he had to convince her father to actually do it. So it's kind of interesting to see that sort of difference. But I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks. Bye.